A couple of years ago, we did a video about people from Alberta moving to BC. And since that time, things have maybe kind of gone the other way here, especially in the last year. And we've had a few comments from people saying, haha, see, BC's not so great now, is it? We're all moving to Alberta. And I kind of want to talk about that.
Because BC stands for bring cash.
It stands for being communist.
Oh.
Yeah, lots of them. There's endless ones.
So why are people moving from BC to Alberta now? You got the numbers. Like, it actually is. Like, people are moving from BC to Alberta.
Yeah, it's not made up story. It actually is happening, but I don't think it's as big a deal as it's being made out to be. This is from CBC. In 2023, StatsCan said the net interprovincial migration was negative for BC for the first time since 2012 at negative 8,600 people.
8,600 and some people left BC.
That's right, Canadians. When you look at all immigration, like from outside the country, we're way up.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So we're having Canadians leave to go to other provinces or to leave the country, right? But as far as population, our number continues to be bigger, as with most other places in Canada right now.
People from BC are going to Alberta, but
That's
then
right.
also people from Ontario are going to Alberta.
Way more people from Ontario
Yeah.
going to Alberta than BC going to Alberta.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And then the biggest spot is Calgary. Calgary is seeing the hugest increase in pricing and costs and everything of people coming over.
Well, that's the big thing, is that you're leaving, BC and Ontario to find affordable housing, because in Vancouver specifically and Toronto, it's just out of reach for normal people. So, you start moving to find someplace else you can afford. And when you go down the list of big cities that you would want to live in, if you're used to a big city, then Calgary is the first one that you come to that you're like, well, it's a big city and I can afford to live there. But this has been going on in Calgary since COVID. And I kind of think it's getting to a little bit of a point, because the last we'd heard, I think the benchmark in Calgary was like 700 or 750 or something like that for a family home. So far cheaper than Toronto or Vancouver, but in no reality is that affordable.
Yeah, exactly. Because even like when people had their eyes on Calgary maybe 2 years ago and said, okay, I'll move there and I'll rent for a little bit and then I'll get my job and then I'll get approved for a mortgage and I'll buy. Now they go to buy and they can't buy because they've already missed the market on it.
Yeah. So people continue to pour into Alberta. There had been a story, I think maybe in January, that if you're from outside of the country coming to Canada, the preferred destination is Alberta, because it's affordable to be in Alberta. And so there's a lot of that going on. So yes, there are people leaving here to go there. I don't think it's because Alberta is just where everybody wants to be. If you're from BC specifically, you're looking at Alberta and you're saying, well, it's only one province over. They still have Rocky Mountains in that province. I can come back and it's simple for me to visit. It's simple for people here to go visit me in Alberta, and I can buy a home, right? I think that's really what it boils down to. And I think we even said this in the other video, that it takes 2 years for you to decide if you're going to stay someplace or not. So right now we'd say, oh yeah, there's all these people leaving for Alberta. Tough thing to change provinces like that, especially if you're going someplace that you don't know anybody, right? Different if maybe you're going and there's some family there, but to go on your own, it's a really tough thing to do.
It's hard to adjust. We did say strongly about Calgary, people moving to Calgary, but then of course Edmonton, yes. And then rural areas too, that a lot of people are going to rural areas. And even with foreigners moving in, then a lot of the times they're kind of encouraged to go into rural areas and smaller centers and the Smoky River of Alberta, the smaller areas. Yeah. Anyway, so you got people moving to all those areas and just adjusting to a new location. Yeah, I think it would be hard for sure.
Really tough. I think it's tough when you're moving from province to province. If you're coming from another country, man, it would be a big change, I think.
Yeah, like if you've never had 30 below and now you're dealing with northern Alberta 30 below.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I hope
pretty
you're
tough.
fine.
Yeah. My suspicion is that in the years to come, you'll probably see the reverse, because I think that when you're looking at Alberta and you say, I can go there to afford a home, and that's really important for me to afford a home, you go and you get there and then all you're doing in Alberta is affording a home.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, right? The provincial government in that province is like cuckoo crazy times, right? Like Smith is a lunatic.
Well, yeah, the biggest thing is just basically she wants to dismantle the public healthcare system. So you're
Well,
going to
all of
have
it.
a private healthcare system. You're going to have no pension. Like
Provincial police. But my guess is that in the next 2 or 3 years in that province, they're going to start whispering about separation, and then you'll really see, I think, things come unglued because I don't think there's an appetite for that in Alberta. But regardless, I think that if you've lived here or you've lived in Ontario and you get to Alberta, it's a bit of a culture shock to begin with. But now you get there and they're just actively disassembling the province around you, that doctors are fleeing the province as quickly as they can. And that housing is not the screaming, amazing, once in a lifetime deal that it once was. I don't know that that's someplace somebody stays for a long time. When we were in Alberta, we would talk about the Alberta Advantage. And I kind of think a lot of that has gone away in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's still no sales tax in the province, which is, makes everything however much cheaper from where you're coming from. But at the same time, there's no provincial sales tax in the province. So that just means that you still have the same expenses as other provinces, but because there's no sales tax, you're going to pay for it in, fees or provincial taxes. Everybody thinks that it's so much cheaper to pay taxes in Alberta. But I was shocked when I ran the numbers through a 2024 personal tax calculator for Canada. The break-even point is $170,000 a year. So if you make under $170,000 a year, you pay lower taxes in BC than you would in Alberta.
That would surprise a lot of people.
So, and I think it's like, what is it, 2 to 5% of Canadians make over $170,000 a year.
Yeah.
This isn't household. This is per person.
Yeah, that's.
So, the vast majority of British Columbians moving to Alberta will pay more in income tax in that province.
Because I think your average income in Canada is 70,000. Like it's not very high.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's nowhere near this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is $170,000 a year would put you in the very top level of earners in Canada.
So Albertans are paying more income tax than BC, up to 170,000.
That's right. So that's a wash. Your car insurance, I think, is probably going to be more.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
A little bit more, yeah.
A little bit more. Fuel's going to be a little bit less.
Fuel, yeah.
Maybe considerably less, depending where it is. But then you're also going to use more of it. I'm talking more about the southern part of the province in the Okanagan. We don't have to run our cars all the time. You don't have to let it run for 10 minutes before you go someplace. In Alberta, you're going to. You're going to get a command start on the car, or you're going to go and you're going to trudge out to your car and start it and then come back inside and have coffee for 10 or 15 minutes before you go out. When the car is cold, it burns way more fuel. So that the fuel, you might still come ahead somewhat in Alberta, but I think it's closer to a wash than most people think. And their utility situation, it's just a mess right now. I think about 30 years ago in Alberta, in its infinite wisdom, the provincial government decided to sell off that infrastructure to private entities. So now when you have electricity or gas, you're buying it from a private corporation and you're at the whims of the market. Their goal is not to sell you energy at an affordable price. It's to make more money.
I see my friends on Facebook posting that their utility bills are ridiculous. And it's all thanks to private EPCOR now that used to be public.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Justin Trudeau's fault. If you read, it's all those darn liberals screwing this up. But no, it is the province that they've screwed this up royally. I don't see this being something long term. When we were in Alberta, you would meet people that moved from Ontario. You'd meet people that moved from BC. And when you first meet them, they're like, oh, it's great. There was lots to love, especially if you met them in the summertime. Oh, summers were nice on the prairies. They really liked it. But after they'd been there for a couple of years, oh man, they're homesick, right? And then a lot of people come to Alberta to work, and then you meet after a couple of years, they're like, all I do is work. There's no stop ever. I don't do anything. And in my experience, it didn't take very long for people to say, I think maybe I'll see what it is to go back to where I came from. Even if I have to make less money or even if I have to get a roommate, I would sooner be in those places in that scenario than here doing what I'm doing now.
Well, the biggest thing with that province, being run the way it is, like you don't have any public health care basically.
Yeah.
You're going more than 2 hours to go to a hospital to have a baby. You're hoping that the emerge at the hospital is open and not closed. Your family clinics are all closing down. Doctors are leaving the province. What kind of a life do you have for your family if you can't have health care?
Like when people are saying, I think it's a very real complaint that I can't afford to live where it is I'm living. I can't afford housing. But then, like, honestly, I would tell you not to stop at Alberta. Like if you're looking for something affordable, like Winnipeg, you know, it's a nice city. It's got a hockey team. It's got a football team. It gets cold in the winter, right? But it's a more manageable size than Calgary, right? I don't know that it could be cheap enough for me to move to Saskatchewan. I don't think I'm interested in that. But there are other cheaper places to live than Alberta. Yes, go to Alberta, have your Alberta adventure, but don't be surprised if people decide that they're going to come back in the years to come.
I think it's exaggerated, our cost of living in southern BC. I wonder, like in northern BC, if it's a little bit more cost of living.
I think if you wanted to move to like Fort St. John, or
like
you know, like
Prince George got expensive. Like they're expensive there too, and that's northern. And
I do think, like, you know, you could move to Quesnel if you wanted. I think that's relatively affordable, but I think a lot of people when they're talking about moving here, I think you're moving from Vancouver to Calgary. I don't think you're moving from Vancouver to Viking, Alberta.
Yeah.
Like I think you're looking for city to city.
Yeah.
And if you were just looking for someplace cheaper to live, I think you could probably do it in the province. You know, you would find places that are cheaper to live than the Lower Mainland.
Yeah.
But I think that it's people want a comparable city to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people when you start looking, like you can actually buy a condo in Edmonton for like $50,000, and people will be like, "What? Their condo for $50,000?" Because our condo here will be $550,000.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're like, "Well, I can afford that. I'm going to go there." But yeah, you have to look at a lot of things around that too.
You've got to look at the neighborhood. You got to look at the condition of the building, all those different things. You got to look at the monthly condo fees for it, and I think Val and I are fortunate in that not every decision we make has to be through the lens of what is absolutely the most affordable, cheapest way to do something. But I do think there are a lot of people that are in that predicament. But yeah, if you thought, I'm going to go buy a condo in Edmonton for $50,000 or $100,000, I would really do your homework about what it is you're getting into there, because it's those prices for a reason. It's a really bad neighborhood that your car is going to get broke into, you know, once a week, right? Or
it's
that
30 below.
Yeah, that it's 30 below. That it's you've moved into a building that has had the maintenance deferred for 40 years.
Yeah, condo fees are like $500,
and you can expect a $40,000 special assessment. All these things. So there's a lot to look for. I think it's a typical the grass is greener when you look at it. We've lived in both, and if for whatever reason we couldn't stay in Gibsons and we had to go someplace else, like Alberta's not even on my shopping list. Right? There would be a lot of other places I would look at before I would even consider Alberta, just because first been there, done that. And I think it's deteriorated from where it was to where it is right now.
We just working on bringing family over here.
That's right. Yeah, we're doing our best to turn that net interprovincial migration number around. We'll pump those numbers up.
And then people here are like, when you say, I want my parents to come here, then the people here are like, well, we don't have enough services for older people. Like there's not enough hospital capacity. There's not enough nursing home capacity. There's not enough even like retirement downsizing homes here. But it's not like the situation is better there in Alberta. We
had a recent video where we talked about the state of these things across Canada. And I think healthcare is an embarrassment across the country right now. And I think that a lot of provinces are weaponizing it. Oh, look what's been done to us. Look at how bad, like we don't, it's the federal government's problem. We don't have housing. It's the federal government's problem. We don't have doctors. This has been a long time coming. And a lot of provincial governments just let it deteriorate to that point. And now they're trying to find somebody to scapegoat for it. But I don't know where you would say to go in Canada that you're like, it's super affordable to live. There is a ton of healthcare. You know, groceries are cheap. Car insurance is a reasonable amount. Yeah, I don't think that exists right now. But there's a whole host of things that I do not like about being in Alberta. There's a lot of people that will get to Alberta and they'll be there for a year and they'll go, that's what he was talking about.
Well, even jobs, like, because the thing is, Alberta, you can always go to Alberta for jobs. People from out east or even out west, whatever, will go to Alberta and we'll get jobs. But there's not all those jobs right now either,
No.
right now. So you go and you look and you look and you look for work and you don't find it.
Yeah. For the longest time, the golden ticket was you went and you worked on a rig in Alberta. But more and more of that is becoming automated, or you're doing it with directional drilling or different things. And it's smaller and smaller crews all the time. And not that there are not roughnecks on rigs working, but it's just not what it was at one point in time. And, Fort McMurray, that was a huge thing for 15 years, that it boomed. And you were building big plants and expanding and all the rest. And you're not anymore now. There's jobs, a lot of these things, again, a lot of it is automated. So yeah, it's just not an automatic that you're going to go to Alberta and make $150,000 a year. The other thing too, I would be worried about moving to Alberta right now is the real estate market is nuts in a way I don't think it is anyplace else in Canada. We're very used to huge swings in real estate prices in relatively short periods of time. And it's nothing for you to have bought a house in Edmonton for $250,000 and have it run up to $375,000 in 2 or 3 years. And then 5 years later, you're back at,
300,000. Yeah.
Right. So depending where you buy in that cycle, you can be in a real bind. And that would concern me a little bit, buying specifically into Calgary right now, is that you're buying at a high point, and if it swings, it can swing fast. And now you're trapped in the province because you don't have $200,000 to subsidize the property to get out from under it, because it's worth less than what you owe on it. And now you don't have enough money to offset the difference and get out. So that would be something I would be concerned about moving to Alberta right now too.
Anyways, we're not moving back to Alberta.
No.
We're very happy here. We've been here 10 years.
Yes.
I don't know if I say this out loud or not, but I actually have a note in in my little Google Calendar that pops up every once in a while and reminds me, if I get stressed about work or whatever, I say that I didn't move to BC to work like an Albertan.
Yeah.
So Albertans work hard. Albertans work hard, and we worked hard when we were in Alberta. Like, I don't even want to go there. Pretty much felt like I had 2 full-time jobs for a long time. But then coming to BC, we were able to slow it down a little bit.
One thing I do want to say about Alberta is that as much as I don't like their premier or their provincial government, the people in the province are awesome, right? Yeah. There are a lot of people in that province that they might think completely different than you do, but when you're stuck in the ditch, they'll come and they'll pull you out, right? If there's some kind of a tragedy in your family, they're bringing food to your house, right? And it's really, really great people in that province that deserve a way better government than that they've got. And there's a lot to love about the province, but just when I look at the real estate prices now and I look at that provincial government, I don't think it's something I could recommend to somebody to get involved with.